All right, I'm Dion Gordon, and this is Tech Birmingham, our Tech Tuesday speaker series. This one is presented by Regents, as they all are. We wish we could be with you all in person, but obviously we had to do things a bit differently. But we definitely appreciate the time that you all spend with us. We can only imagine with everything going on right now that you have a lot of obligations and you're being pulled on in a lot of different directions. So the fact that you all would spend this hour with us, we want to acknowledge that and let you all know that we really do appreciate it. I would be remiss if I did not give a shout out to the team, Rebecca and Christina. They do phenomenal and remarkable work. They are the glue that pulls all of this together. So thank you. And thank you, of course, to the attendees for making this possible. We appreciate the support of Regents and the fact that, again, you all decide to join us and engage. And so if you are with us now, or if you happen to come across this later through our recording, thank you. Speaking of the recording, we upload all of these to our YouTube channel. You can find that at youtube.com/techbham. And make sure you are a member of Tech Birmingham. We are quickly moving into 2021. I have no idea where the year went, but it is going quickly. And so we have a lot of things on the docket the usual that we have, of course, right? But in addition to that, we're going to be rolling out some new initiatives and some new programs. We might have a little bit of time toward the end to kind of talk about that. If you were a part of this before we officially kicked off, you might have heard Rebecca talk about some of the affinity groups that we are going to be aligning with. So again, a lot of exciting things coming down the pipeline, but your support is critical to that. So if you or if your organization is not a part of Tech Birmingham, make sure that you all encourage that to happen. And even if you all are a member of Tech Birmingham, we still want to hear from you all, especially what we can do to make sure you and your organization will be ready for whatever is coming down in 2021, whether that is educational content, whether that's just opportunities to network and build meaningful relationships virtually or in a safe manner in person once it is okay for us to all kind of congregate again. So we lean on you all for that support, for that feedback and that insight. Again, techbirmingham.com, make sure you sign up. That said, let's go ahead and kind of get into a little bit of the content. I won't steal any thunder, but we have been joined by some great friends over at Google Cloud. And I am pleased to say that Micheal and Kevin, I have known for a while now. Kevin a little bit longer. You all missed it, but they agree, as well as Rebecca, that my Leadership Birmingham class of 2019 was the best. That never happens in Leadership Birmingham history. Usually they feel that the class they were a part of was and I'm sure you caught Rebecca actually coming back on camera to give me a well-received head shake to express her displeasure. But all that to say, they really are great people, and not only do they excel at the work they do, they just have a remarkable passion for Birmingham. Nirav, I just met, but super excited about what he is going to be sharing as well. So all of that said, I just want to set the stage to let you all know that we're going to be unpacking a lot around what has informed Google's success, how they have been able to make the pivots and adjustments through continuous improvement, through things like empathy, actually, and how that ties into the success of an organization. And I really do believe that what they share will be applied or applicable rather to what it is that you're doing, whether that's through a team or whether that's on an organizational wide approach. And so with that said, thank you guys. I really do appreciate the time, and I will kick it over to you, Kevin, to take us from here.
Thank you very much, Dion. We appreciate the opportunity to come speak. I'd like to start by saying that that's really sweet that you would say that your class was the best. And I understand how you have to represent your class. But I mean, we all know it was a build down from 18. I mean, like, we all know that, right? We all can agree to start. I'd like to start by saying this presentation, when Google first wrote these 10 things, when Google was just a few years old, this is when we kind of first started this. When we incorporated, we wrote these 10 things that we knew to be true And from time to time, we revisit this list to see if it still holds true. It does, and you can hold us to that. Our goal here is to share these 10 principles and that guide and influence our decisions today and how we view the future. These principles have been our recipe for success, and we believe that by holding true to them, we will allow us to continue to grow. And by embracing a mindset of continuous improvement and, to Dion's point, empathy and failing fast, you can use these yourself to grow both personally and professionally. Nirav, next slide. So who are we? So one thing that's unique about us is our approach is hyper-local. So we began every one of our meetings at Google telling something unique that no one knows about us. And after all our meetings, you have to continually strive to find things new about yourself. So my name is Kevin Archer. I am an enterprise account manager based in Birmingham, Alabama. The reason why I came to Google was after 20 years in the technology industry with Global Imaging Systems as a leader and with a local technology company, Motion Moms, who's fantastic, by the way, just a quick shout out. I wanted to work for an organization that really saw the mandate for growth as being something bigger than just revenue. I really wanted to work for a corporation that wanted to be a leader in cultural change, climate change, and just being a leader in transforming the ecosystem as a whole. And Google does that. One thing completely unique about me is as Sally approaches us from the South, I realized recently that I had lived or worked as a permanent resident in 6 of the 11 rainiest cities in the US. And I'm not even counting Pittsburgh, which is one of the gloomiest. But 6 of the 11 cities. Now, Pittsburgh is a great city. It's just, there's a lot of clouds. So 6 of the 11 cities in the US that rain the most, I have worked in. So I'm like that old, I'm like that guy from, what is it called? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where the rain king, where the rain follows him around. That's me. I'd like to introduce Nirav Gandhi, who's guiding this. Nirav?
Hi, everyone. Good to meet you. As Kevin mentioned, Nirav Gandhi. I'm a cloud customer engineer with Google. Been with Google a little bit over a year now. I'm from Alabama originally. I'm in Atlanta now, but grew up in Alabama, went to the University of Alabama, Roll Tide. I've worked with several other companies prior to coming over to Google. I was with Microsoft and with Coca-Cola, as well as IBM. The reason I love Google is because basically based on their mission statement, is to organize the world's information and make it universally available, accessible and useful. So that resonates with what I'd like to do in my career. So it's been a great journey, and the things going on with the pandemic and everything, it's really appreciative how Google has adjusted to that. So I'm very excited to be speaking on the panel today.
Okay, hi there. My name's Micheal Landes. So it's a pleasure to see you all again. I'm an enterprise account manager here in Birmingham, along with Kevin. Excited to be talking to you all today. The reason I joined Google was a lot of, again, the alignment of, I think, the community impact that Kevin's talking about. I've had a passion for that for a long time, and I'm excited to be at a company that helps encourage a lot of that involvement, along with also trying to do my day job. So I like a culture that supports that kind of thing, and it's what drew me to Google. As far as an interesting thing about me, it's more of an interesting thing about my connection to Alabama before moving here. I went to Butler University in Indianapolis, where before 2009, no one knew where that was, and then basketball happened. But the player that led both the teams, the back-to-back national title games from Butler, was Homewood, Alabama's finest, Ronald Norred. So my love for this particular area of Alabama has been strong for a while, through the heart of every Indiana person, and that is the sport of basketball. So excited to be here today.
So Nirav, you want to kick us off?
Definitely. So let's start with the first one. So there's 10 of these, as Kevin mentioned. The first one is focus on the user and all else will follow. Since the beginning, we focused on providing the best user experience possible. whether we're designing a new internet browser or a new tweak to the look of a homepage, Google takes great care to ensure that they will ultimately serve you rather than our own internal goal or bottom line. Our homepage interface is clear and simple, and pages load instantly. Placement in search results is never sold to anyone, and advertising is not only clearly marked as such, it offers relevant content and it's not distracting. And we build on new tools and applications. We believe they should work so well, you don't have to consider how they might have been designed differently. So my take on that personally is, instead of just focus on the goal and the road will reveal itself, right? So my interpretation of that is sometimes we all get caught up in emails, busy schedules, a global pandemic. All of these immediate events happening in our lives can take us off the road or down a different direction, so to speak. However, if you establish a goal for yourself or for your business or for your customers, you can keep focused on that goal. You'll find that the path to that goal will reveal itself. Just like in Google Maps, you set a destination, and based on your current location, Google Maps will find that most optimal route to that destination. This doesn't mean you don't change your direction, because if there's a traffic or if there's an accident, Google Maps will try to reroute you to that destination. But essentially, the destination is the same, right? So take that analogy to your life and in business. As long as you focus on that goal, the destination, the road will reveal itself, but you may have to change the path sometimes on how you get there. Another thing I take a look at is, one thing I ask myself is, where do I want to be in 3 years? Asking myself this question helps me level set on practical and realistic goals, and begin to roughly plan out, what I need to do to get there. So as I do that, the rest of the path will reveal itself, and I begin to start working on that goal. So I'll take you to the next one here.
Yeah, so I've got the next one. So it's best to do one thing really, really well. And you may think that that's kind of weird coming from a company called like Google that has a lot of things going on. But let's peel back the onion on kind of what that really means and how we apply that, and where I feel like there's additional value. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So what that really means is, focusing on building agile teams that do a thing and do a thing really, really well, right? You can't be a master of everything. You just can't. It's impossible. There are strengths that you have, right? So that second line, where can you drive the most value? That's how we structure a lot of our teams. There's reasons why there's specializations in certain categories. There's reasons why the agile framework exists. There's reasons why all these people kind of interact with each other, right? Because the sum of the parts is greater than the whole in many ways. You can, what was, I think from a quote in this book, I'll talk about here in a second, why half-ass something when you can whole-ass one thing, right? Throw all of your experience and knowledge into one thing that you can crush within a particular project, within a particular roadmap. That's how we're able to achieve a lot of the scale. We're able to kind of pick the brains of people who've had very unique experience and bring unique value, and they crush those particular aspects of their superpowers. So, what are those superpowers? And as business leaders, how do we then take those superpowers and harness that energy to drive innovation, right? So recognizing that, respecting that, and empowering that. But that last line there is actually really important, and that's the ability to say no. So if any of you have ever had the opportunity to read any books on this, and I'd be curious if anyone has read the book Essentialism. This is a book that actually I found out about right at the beginning of my Google career from some executives. It's about, a lot of that really focusing in on the value that you bring, but also not saying yes to absolutely everything. So for example, what we encourage at Google is, prioritization. So let's say someone comes to you with a project. It's important, but what project isn't that's generally brought to you, at least for someone? The answer isn't, I can't do that, sorry. It's, I'd be happy to do that. How should I reprioritize the other workloads that I have so that I can make that happen, right? Own your time and respect that. And I think that's something that at Google, we've worked very, very hard to build into the culture, the ability to do that. And if there aren't enough resources to make things happen, maybe we should consider a roadmap for some additional headcount. So these are the kind of things that fuel a lot of the decisions internally at Google, while respecting people's time, because you can't just go burning out people all over the place. It doesn't bring any value back into the business. So focus on what you're good at. It's okay to say no, and create an environment around that to encapsulate and support that kind of work.
Okay, I have the third one. So fast is better than slow. You know, we know your time is valuable. So when you're seeking an answer on the web, you want it right away, and we aim to please. We may be the only people in the world who can say our goal is to have people leave our website as quickly as possible. By shaving excess bits and bytes from our pages and increasing the efficiency of our serving environment, we've broken our own speed records many times over, so that the average response time on each search result is a fraction of a second. We keep speed in mind with each new product we release, whether it's mobile application or Google Chrome, a browser designed to be fast enough for the modern web. And we continue to work on making it all go even faster. So my personal interpretation of this is that fast is better than slow in everything that you do, right? Whether you win, fail, or even break even. I consider fail learning. There's an opportunity to learn from the result. It is better to get to that result faster so you can learn from it. You know, being an alum of the University of Alabama and being a huge Crimson Tide fan, we all know about Coach Nick Saban and his philosophy around the process, right? The success of the football team is based on the fundamentals that Coach Saban delivers through the process. Part of this is not looking at the clock, not looking at the last play, whether it was successful or a failure, but looking at the now and having a clean slate and never getting complacent. This mindset, fast is better than slow, and the process goes hand in hand with being agile and being iterative in everything that you do. Whether it is your personal work life or even or event at an enterprise level, right? Being agile and iterative is key to delivering value. We normally think of agile, iteration, you know, CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery, or deployment when we refer to software development. But the concepts can easily apply to our lives. The result of being agile and iterative could lead to a promotion. It could be a new job, leading to new customers, or just innovation, leading to more opportunities for your business. You know, you can easily say CI/CD can mean continuous improvement and continuous personal development in your life. It's a consistently iterative process. Never be satisfied with the result, even if you get to the result that you're looking for, and always find ways to make yourself better and go through that process again and again in an iterative manner.
So democracy on the web works. Google search works because it relies on millions of individuals posting links on websites to help determine which other sites offer content of value. We assess the importance of every web page using more than 200 signals and a variety of techniques, which analyze which sites have been voted to be the best sources of information by other pages across the web. As the web gets bigger, this approach actually improves. As each new site is another point of information and another vote to be counted. And in the same vein, we are active in the open source software development, which innovation takes place through the collective effort of many programmers. Next slide. So our mission is to accelerate every organization's ability to transform through data-powered innovation with the best infrastructure, platform, industry solutions, and enterprise expertise for digital transformation. So we have 9 services, Google does, with over 1 billion monthly users, from Google Photos to the Google Play, to Android, to YouTube, to Google Maps, to Gmail, to search. 9 services with over 1 billion monthly users. And in order for that to be successful, we have to have an open source platform. Next slide. So Google believes that open source is good for everyone. By being open and freely available, it enables and encourages collaboration and development of technology, solving real world problems. We use tens of thousands of open source projects to build scalable, reliable products. We've released millions of lines of code under open source licenses, the public for everyone to be able to use. And that open source licenses, we believe, and through those, we believe that a healthy ecosystem is important for the sustainability of open source for all. So really, when you think about this, open source helps us use the greater mind, whether it's developing Kubernetes and distributing that, GitHub laboratories. We use MySQL, MySQL. All of these are resources and tools that enable us to leverage the mind power of more than us. And by using the mind power of others, it allows us to provide the best products to market and really helps the ecosystem as a whole grow and evolve.
There ever wasn't a more COVID answer than this one. You don't need to be at your desk to need an answer. Well, no duh. Right? So we got a lot of remote workers out in multiple different places. You've got all of a sudden new consumer bases that are interacting with businesses in different ways, and they're all over the freaking place. So it's very clear that you don't need to be at your desk when you're trying to get information. And so, focusing on those types of things, how we're enabling information to get out to different places is important both internally at a company and how you interact with your employees, as well as externally in terms of how you interact with customers. So go to the next slide. I kind of have that laid out in a couple of examples. So internally, how are you, enabling remote access to information and projects, right? So for us, something that's worked really well, for us is, we don't use VPNs. It's not a thing. We have a zero trust capability that we use internally. It is sold as a product, but, the grand scheme of things is, what are the heavy processes that limit people at the edge for doing the work they need to do, right? So thinking about that and having an open line of communication with the people at the edge is what's going to drive that. Going back to one of the earlier points, starting with the kind of user and working backwards. Well, this is a great way to apply that in this particular section in terms of remote work and focusing on where they're at. Don't solve the problem without having people have a point of view. So ask a lot of the various departments how they're going to do that. And on top of that, well, if you're going to have people remotely, how's the help desk going to then be empowered to help those people? There's a full chain of people that are a part of this, and they're all very important. So what is the smoothest path? So how are you enabling all those people to do what they need to do, not from their desk? I'm sure there's people out there who have gotten paged because there's a technical issue at the company. Turns out they can't, and they're on vacation. Turns out they can't log in because that issue is their network. Well, that stinks. That's kind of hard to triage. So what kind of things can you do to be thinking of an external and mobile workforce to help assist you? That's something that we've put a lot of energy in enabling and empowering people to be able to do their work as easily from their desktop as it is from their phone. External, it kind of goes into that. Is your business set up to inform and transact with mobile customers? There was a lot of policy, or a lot of processes that got stirred up, starting predominantly in March, especially here, right, when things started to get shut down. All of a sudden, you go out to get a mortgage, and it's like, yeah, but you can come in and sign these documents. No, I am not coming in to sign those documents because COVID, right? Or your bank branch is closed or whatever. So like, how are we, but there's still a lot of questions and a lot of processes that need to be empowered there. Which is why when we build a product, we build it for where customers are going to be. Obviously not all of our stuff just works on a desktop. All of our stuff doesn't just work on a private link. All of our stuff also doesn't even have to have access to the internet to function, right? So meet the customers, meet the people where they are, enable them to do those things, because again, they're going to need to be able to access information and do work and, transact with you no matter where they are. So having those considerations of kind of where people are and how they're interacting with it is an important key component to us, and something that is important to building out businesses that are mobile and future ready.
So you can make money without doing evil. So Google is a business, and we must have revenue to grow. But I think what makes Google unique as a company is our mandate is bigger than revenue. And I think no more, and part of the reason why I came to Google was because the focus, I think at the core, they really wanted to be a leader in cultural change and climate change and economic change, really in providing accessibility worldwide. But what's happened through recent challenges that we face as a country and as a world, next slide please, is we've had to figure out how to listen to what's happening, to speak out against and for the things that we believe in, and to act, right? And we have to lead in that charge. And so whether it's climate change, where we're running we'll be running carbon-free energy by 2030, we're helping craft and create a carbon-free future. We have round-the-clock clean energy for cloud, whether it's us limiting the AI and ML resources that we provide to oil and gas, really applying it towards sustainable energy of the future, or really, and very importantly, about cultural change as it provides to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So one of the things that I think is very unique to Google is so many companies I have been a part of over my career have been looking for the right fit. Like, we're hiring somebody who really fits our team and our culture and what we want to do. But that's not Google's philosophy. Google's philosophy is we want to hire someone who expands our fit, expands our team. So we're not looking for someone who fits into our already existing culture. We want to hire people who actually expand our knowledge base, which means people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different experiences, people who can come in and have a voice that can make our ecosystem broader and bigger. And that's how you expand the team. You don't get to where you want to go, and you certainly don't get to 10x growth by having people who think like-minded to you do. And so I think as we've gone through this diversity, equity, inclusion, on any Google presentation that we have, especially internal or external, we try to have at least a 50% representation of diversity and equity and inclusion. And the funniest thing is those presentations are made better for it. One of the things that we're experiencing now is a crisis like none other. Next slide. COVID-19 is different. It's a completely different experience. If you look at the theme parks that are largely empty, airports that are empty, restaurants that are empty, you can only do dine-in. I mean, COVID has changed the way we interact and view the world. And so I think one of the things that make Google a leader in this charge is how we have responded to the urgency of the COVID-19 pandemic, whether it be helping stand up New York State's unemployment claims, whether it be partnering with Apple to provide contract tracing app for free and mass distributed, whether it's AI-enabled digital pathology solutions, or donating tens of millions of dollars to COVID-19 AI and data analytics projects that can help speed the path to a cure, or at least to a vaccine. Really, or even if it's something that's simple at the business level of leading the charge with back-to-work COVID vetting programs, so it enables your employees to get back to work quickly. I think one of the things, whether it's investing in third world to make sure that they have the access where they have access to internet to be able to continue to compete and grow in this new economic climate created by COVID-19, being a leader in this charge is critical. And that's not about driving revenue. That's about creating a climate to where all businesses can succeed.
Okay. So number 7 in things we know to be true is there's always more information out there. Once Google indexed more of the HTML pages on the internet than any other search service, our engineers turned in their attention to information that was not as readily accessible. Sometimes it was just a matter of integrating new databases into search, such as adding a new phone number, an address lookup, and a business directory. Other efforts required a bit more creativity, like adding the ability to search news archives, patents, academic journals, billions of images, and millions of books. And our researchers continue looking into ways to bring all the world's information to people seeking answers. Just kind of staying on that topic there, as you can see, this 20% of enterprise data is structured. So a lot of times when enterprises look at their data, and try to make insights from that data, they're only looking 20% of it, because this is a data that's structured from input data. There's any piece of data that's maybe a human might have added in a computer, such as their name, their age, their income, form survey responses, and so on. Other information like click stream data, point of sale data, and financial data. These are all data that can be highly organized and formatted in a way that's easily searchable, right? So that's only 20% of their data. 80% of enterprise data is unstructured, right? It's very expensive and difficult to harness. These are data that's in emails, in PDFs, in videos, files, and things like that. Also machine generated data such as sensor data or satellite image data. So there's a huge opportunity that's being missed by enterprises by not taking advantage of the 80% of this unstructured data. And the way to get access to that data is through new technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning, to use that to get insights into that data.
Okay. The need for information crosses all borders. So go ahead and go to the next slide, because I kind of changed where this was coming from. So let's take borders out of there and let's put barriers. You're going to see this message again. And Kevin was right. We really do want to make sure and have this be a highlight of what we discuss and everything. But it really does have a lot to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. It really kind of stops there. So if you think about the barriers that people have to getting information, right? There are many. And it crosses a lot of different arenas, right? Language, socioeconomic, the way you learn or consume information is different. A disability, racial boundaries. There's a lot of things that you need to consider when it comes to getting information or things to people in an equitable fashion. And I think the best example of that is actually, I'm happy to send this YouTube link to y'all afterwards. But there's a presentation by our camera team. So there's the Google camera team to help with Pixel phones and different devices and things like that. And they were doing a test of their a lot of their like low light camera features. And it turns out when they kept testing it that with public groups, that it wasn't working very well for Black people. And they couldn't figure out why. Like, gosh, we tested this over and over and over and over and over again. Like, why is this not working? Well, then they took a look around the room of the people who were developing it, and all the people were white. Well, that certainly doesn't help if your whole QA process was meant to be for all people, and the only people you tested on were white people. So they scrapped the project and redid the whole thing. And it was a recognition that there were biases involved in that, and that they needed to change it. Like I said, that's a publicly available story. Be happy to share it with you guys, but it's when we're going through and looking at providing information, providing a service, providing whatever, right? That all these things need to be considered. There's also another video about people who need access to information in India. Well, not everyone in India has access to the internet, right? But they still need it for medical advice, for all kinds of things. But they may get close to an internet hotspot maybe once a week. Okay, so how can you build an application that caches that content that's viable enough for them during that time? That's why, for example, Google Maps, if you've ever driven into Canada or to Mexico, another country, and you're trying not to use your cell phone data to charge you, you're able to cache Google Maps and still use it, even though you're not connected to the internet, right? So it's those kinds of things to think about, where there are people in different situations and have different experiences, but still need your stuff, even in some cases more so than you. And so thinking about that as we develop products, as we make this available, to the public, is something that is paramount and has been successful for us when we're really trying to approach this. Like, for example, Google Meet. There's some features like some of the the breakout rooms and other things that are coming on the roadmap. But guess what feature was put in first? Closed captioning, right? Because closed captioning is a resource that helps more people consume it. right? So that is a priority use case for us as opposed to other things. So it's just something to consider when thinking about developing your products and how you're going to market with those out there.
So our founders built Google around the idea that work should be challenging and the challenge should be fun. And we believe that great creative things are more likely to happen with the right company culture. And that doesn't just mean lava lamps and rubber balls. There's an emphasis on team achievements and pride in individual accomplishments that contribute to our overall success. We put great stock in employees, energetic, passionate people from diverse backgrounds with creative approaches to work, play, and life. Our atmosphere may be casual, but as new ideas emerge in a cafe line or at a team meeting or at a gym or during this COVID-19 under a Google Meet sync, they are traded, tested, and put into practice with dizzying speed. And they may be the launch pad for a new project destined for worldwide use, one of the next billion-dollar products that we sell. Next slide, Nirav. Many of us have worked for companies who rigidly adhere to dress codes in an effort to present a more professional image. Oftentimes, those same companies fill calendars with team meetings, sometimes in rooms way too small for all the participants. These are not bad companies. It's just that they spend their energy focused on process instead of performance. Next slide. And it's just not our way. So Google is all about performance, all about performance. We just think you can get there faster and have more fun along the way, and that by restricting your blood flow with a tie or a scarf may not necessarily be the best way for your brain to form creative new ideas. And I spent 20 years in an industry that really required a tie. I never felt that tie made me more productive. And by freeing us up to really focus on the idea and not the dress code, we can get to where we want to be. And I think that that's something that you should maybe consider for your own organization. Big part of who we are. And if you've ever watched, for those of you who've ever watched The Internship, the culture is like that. It's all over the place. And you have all these fresh ideas and all different people. And it's really not there's not one way to dress. There's not one way to think. And I think that's an important part about who we are.
All right, I'm going to try and bring this home, folks. And it's kind of a good segue off of number 9. And that is, great just isn't good enough. And I don't think I can say that enough in terms of what has really helped us with success. And I want to be very clear that this is not a demand for perfection, nor should it be. In fact, the innards of being, getting past great is because there's been a lot of imperfections involved with that. So let's go to the next slide. Item number 1 there, keeping the lights on isn't enough, right? That's great. Keep the lights on. But if you're only focused on the now, then all those other companies around you are going to beat you. The innovation cycle, in terms of years it takes to iterate in things, it keeps speeding up and everyone knows it. If the answer to everything is always, well, this is just how we've always done it, that's probably a process you should fix. And it could be a technical process, it could be a business process. There's things that you need to have a holistic look at, but the status quo is not enough. That's not how you keep moving fast on behalf of your customers. So how do you do that? Well, you experiment a lot. You try a bunch of different new things. And you know what? Not all of them are going to stick. And that's okay. Because the last item there, failure is an opportunity to learn instead of an opportunity to criticize. Failure is not a scarlet letter, nor should it be, ever, right? No one's going to be, throwing, like Tom Brady in his prime, right? Throwing 80% passer rating. It's going to be more like, baseball in some cases, right? Where success might be 30% of the time. So we're not saying, again, be perfect and everything. Because true innovation happens on the frontier, and the frontier is littered with screw-ups and mistakes. So we live in an environment where that is encouraged, and one great example of that is how we rate our engineers internally. So if our engineers, they go into their performance time, and they don't have a lot of failures that are kind of marked in there, it means they weren't trying hard enough. It means they weren't exploring the edge. It means they weren't looking for the next thing, right? We want people who are looking at the edge, at the future, right? Who's going to take us the distance? The people who are just trying to like check the boxes and meet those marks for right now, or the people who are not afraid to go for it? And if you do go for it and you do have screw ups, you get a higher rating. So something to think about, right? You want to encourage experimentation. And the way to encourage experimentation is to not crucify people when they do screw up, right? So that's the kind of mentality where failure is the greatest teacher. Yes, I have a Yoda quote there. Yes, I love Star Wars. Yes, I can probably quote all the movies verbatim, forward and backward, but it's true. We learn way more from failure in many ways than we do our successes. So weaponize it. Weaponize failure for your success instead of casting it aside and having it be a black mark. And I think encapsulating all of this in terms of messages, you probably heard some consistent themes. You've got a lot in diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And that's truly impacted when you're focusing on the user. If you truly understand kind of who's out there, you realize that it is a myriad of different people and experiences and so on and so forth, and helping learn from that and drive towards that, whether they be business practices to empower those people that are part of your organization or enhancements to your products of people who are going to be using it. It is important to be able to drive that kind of thing. You want to be able to go fast. It's not about just living in the now. It's a lot about living in the future and making sure that you can be agile to adapt to it, but that you can move towards it with intention and with force, right? You want to empower your people to be able to do that. And then if you're going to experiment and you're going to be startup-y, well, then get ready to screw up a whole bunch, but realize that there is grace that comes from that failure, right? Offer the right safe space and opportunity to cultivate that kind of innovative learning. And that is something that I feel like Google has done a fantastic job at, and why we've been able to sprint, and why a lot of our teams kind of think of themselves as startups. They have a lot of autonomy. They're not afraid to go full bore because, we're constantly looking for that next 10x idea. What is going to be the next thing that is going to drive our business? And, so think about if you have innovation orgs at your business, if you have a side project that's kind of your baby, like how do you want to do that? Have a real conversation internally about how you're actually metricing that or rewarding folks who are living at the edge. It might be a time to maybe consider a different model for some of those people, to maybe create a safe space for them. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to do that. And of course, our ways are not canon, right? They're by no way the only way to do this. There's several ways to skin a cat, but we sure think that we've got a number of things right. But we're always willing to learn, and we'd love to collaborate more with this community because, this is a community that is embracing a lot of those things, in many ways early stages. But we're excited to be a part of that and share our successes so that we can help those successes turn into your successes. So that's our message for today. Again, the 10 things that we know to be true. These are public things that are from Google. There's a lot of accompanying videos that if you're interested in kind of learning a little bit more about what we do, they're very open and honest about where we've learned from failure, and are happy to make those available to you as well. So thank you for the time. I guess now we're probably opening it up to any questions y'all may have for us, and see where we can be the most impactful for you. So thank you.
Michael, Kevin, Nirav, thank you guys. I really appreciate you all kind of giving us a peek behind the curtain into the Google culture, how you all are really living it out. So I do want to pose a couple of questions actually that I received. With everything on you guys' collective plate, and I guess this is a personal as well as an organizational question, but how do you all prevent burnout? Are there signs that you look for? Is it, more about management, setting expectations? Just would love for you all just to kind of talk about that. And that's for anybody who like to take a stab at that answer.
I'll take a first stab at that. So I want to go back to your early comment, Dion, on empathy. I think our leadership is very good at empathy, right? So emotional intelligence. I think they're really clued in. There are a lot of people. There's some satirical articles written about how we got the 4-day weekend for Labor Day weekend. But leadership noticed that people were like really grinding because of COVID, and not just because of work, but shoot, everybody has kids at home. Like, this is nuts. So they adapted and said, take a 4-day weekend. Like, they just kind of notice the pulse. Here, take this. Or they changed the way leave is done, right? They have a whole new subset of leave that is set for during the week when you need to take time out to teach your kids. There's a whole new subset that's kind of like, hey, we recognize that you have an additional challenge at home. So here, block up a couple hours a day, every other day or something to take care of your kids. Like, there's a lot of people who are clued into that, who are like, yeah, people are getting burned out, and we need to come up with creative ways of supporting them, because it's not always work that's burning them out. And we need to be understanding and empathetic that we as a company can impact those things that are outside the office. So I think that is something that has been really helpful for us being, or at least for me, for being an employee of a company that says, the leadership sees me, maybe is a good way of saying that. So that's one way.
Thank you for providing that. Anybody else, if you all wanted to chime in, feel free to. I did have a couple of other questions I wanted to toss you all's way. So just pause it briefly. If not, how do you all reinforce and support that failure is okay model? I would imagine that there's probably a lot of trepidation, right? I mean, especially given everything that you all are responsible for. It is okay to fail. How do you all set that expectation and embrace that posture?
I can take this. We have these OKEs, which are really goals that we set for ourselves each year. And so everyone has them, right? And they set those goals 10x, right? Whatever you think you can do, you multiply that times 10, and that's your goal. But we don't tie compensation or job performance to accomplishing that goal. So what oftentimes happens when you set goals, or you tie performance to tie your review to your performance, you strive to achieve just enough to achieve 100% of performance. Well, our goals are set that way. We set our goals at 10x what we think is even possible. So when we strive to this great moonshot, and then we're evaluated based off of our effort towards that goal, not based off of whether or not we achieve that goal. And so that's a really completely different way of reviewing and evaluating success or performance, because it's about the effort and that failure first mentality of what happened, how did you learn from that, how did you take that knowledge, how are you adapting that knowledge to apply to these goals as you move forward. How fast did you fail, and how fast did you learn from that failure, and what data did you have? Even from the hiring process, it's not about what you know, it's about how you learn, and then how do you face a challenge, and how do you use data to drive that process forward. Each one of our customer engineers get 20% of their time to tackle personal projects, non-related to their job. So like they can go out, like one day a week, they get to go and say, okay, I'm going to tackle these personal projects, which have spun up all kinds of innovation within our company, because people come up with, a perfect example is this team of salespeople who adopted this 20% rule and had a customer engineer involved with it, came up with a traveling quiz show for Google Cloud. So they go around and they put on these shows across all different teams, both internal and external, for Google Cloud, and these people can come in. It's like a quiz show. They have a board. They have this whole situation, and it was to make learning the product fun for all these people who are onboarding in a remote setting. It's really kind of fun. And so that project didn't really drive to revenue. It didn't really drive to value. It was about how do you create a culture where people really enjoy consuming all of this data in a new way. That's just an example. But it's about that 10x philosophy and evaluating against how you strive to achieve that 10x, to what Michael had said earlier and Nirav had said earlier. It's how you go about trying to get to that 10x, not about whether or not you get there. And that's a big difference. And you don't see a lot of companies who evaluate performance that way.
No, thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate you mentioning, I mean, it seems like OKEs is the lingo now, but you reminded me of John Doerr's work, Measure What Matters, where Google is a big component of that book and describing how you all have such a large, complex organization and manage to trickle down all of the individual components, the roles and responsibilities that then feed up to the overall objective of the organization. And so with that in mind, are there any other resources and best practice? Oh, sure.
Our goals and OKEs don't trickle up. They don't trickle down, they trickle up. And I think that's the big difference between our organization and others. Those goals are not decided on by leadership. They're created from the bottom and they migrate their way up. And so those OKEs are formed by the teams, not by the leaders of those teams.
That's perfect. Appreciate that context. Are there any other resources that, whether you guys have developed or maybe you all lean on that others might want to be aware of? And now or later, we can obviously, we intend to share some information after this to those who were able to attend. But is there anything that you would point people to?
I definitely want to answer that. I think self-analysis is important. So we do this thing called Googly Geist, right? And it's about a self-analysis. And so we evaluate how happy you are with the leadership. It evaluates everything because we're a data company, really. And at our best, we solve big problems with data. But so this past year, 93% of the people were happy with the overall direction and the overall culture within the company. But what we found was there was a discrepancy among maybe African-American females and white males. And so we didn't pat ourselves on the back saying, oh, look how good 93% of the people are happy with the direction and leadership of this company. We're like, how can we have a delta of 30 points between two different demographic groups? We're not happy until both of those groups have the same level of satisfaction. And so that's really diving deep to understand. We need to understand where within our culture we have gaps and knowing our blind spots and where is our unconscious bias and addressing that in a really transparent way. And I think that's something so there's a lot of tools for that. And to your exact question, Michael, Nirav, do y'all want to address that? What tools and resources are available?
Well, I mean, I think to your point, Kevin, you just kind of heard it. What tools are available to help people do that? Every business has the best tool in the world to address those things, and that's their employees. They just need to ask. They need to ask in the right way, I think. So it's framing mindset, right? So, Kevin talks about goals coming from on high, coming down. Like, yeah, there's going to be a combo of those, but empower the workforce to be able to supply what they're seeing on the ground, like what empowers them. And there's a lot of power in data. And if you're looking to kind of get that kind of feedback, ask your employees. And if you aren't in a formal way, in an honest way, then it's not going to work. Then it's just a whole bunch of fluff that doesn't do anything. And, oh, great. Well, we've made the board happy because we inquired and we got the percentages we wanted. That doesn't do anything. It doesn't solve a problem. So I think taking an honest look at your business and coming in and asking honest questions, getting honest feedback is the best tool that there is available. Now, for us, we obviously do share a lot of that through different interactions, right? We have for the site reliability engineering, type framework that we have for how we organize engineering groups and, to help them be more efficient, forward thinking, a lot of the stuff that we talked about. We certainly have those resources internally, and a lot of that is public. And like Dion mentioned, some of our practices are in resources out there. It's just kind of become baked into a lot of those. And of course, we're happy to provide a lot of that stuff. But I really do, just from a simplistic, don't even need to add anything additional, talk to your people. I think that's the best tool that there is.
That's perfect. No, well, great note to end on. Actually, we are right at the 1 hour mark. So, Nirav, if you were about to tell us the meaning of life, I apologize.
I'll get back to you on that.
But no, thank you, Nirav, Michael, Kevin. I appreciate, again, not just the time today, but what you all do for the ecosystem. And Nirav, I know you're over in Atlanta, but we have strong connections over there as well. So we're all in this together at the end of the day. So thank you. And thank you to the attendees. Again, as a quick reminder, we will be posting this to our YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/techbham. So make sure you subscribe to that. And we will also be following up with any additional resources via email as well. So we're going to end officially and hang around maybe for a little bit. But again, just want to say thank you all. And we look forward to seeing you all for our next events coming up this week and into the future. Thanks again.